Good evening, residents of Everett, Washington. Welcome to Wednesday, April 19th. It is 5 o'clock. We are in the council chambers for our Parks and Quality of Life Council Committee meeting. Tonight I am Paula Ryan and co-chair of the committee, and alongside me is Councilmember Ben Zarlingo, also co-chair for the committee, and committee member Liz Vogele. And also staff from the city. Thanks everybody for being here tonight. We have a packed agenda. We'll have a few updates starting with our Park Amphitheater and Stadium project update and status, followed by the 2022 hydroplane race briefing to preclude a ordinance coming before council later tonight. An update on the downtown restroom project and the Everett Municipal Building location, the Forest Park Swim Center feasibility study overview, and a discussion about future agenda items. So I'd like to kick it over to Dan Ernestine to take us on a walk through the Park Amphitheater and Stadium project update.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, Councilmember Ryan. My name's Dan Ernestine. I'm the Economic Development Director, and I'm representing a lot of staff team members that have been working on this project. I don't know everything that I will update you about, but I will do my best. I've tried to keep my comments fairly tight without going into too many tangents, and so that if there are questions, we have time to address them. I know there's a long agenda today. So I thought it was important to start off with just to remind everyone of why we are here. I think the main push started when Major League Baseball promoted the Aqua Sox, the Everett Aqua Sox, from single A short season to high A long season. And they reconfigured a lot of minor league baseball along the way, and they also gave a brand new set of criteria for stadiums. And so every stadium that minor league baseball players play in is now under a new directive. And unfortunately, no stadiums that minor league baseball players played in at the time were compliant with these. So every city, every stadium in the country had to at least do some remodeling and upgrades. For us, Funko Field, where they've been playing for a long time, was very inadequate. I will just say that. It's an older stadium. It had been remodeled a lot of times and been made to fit. It's quaint, but it was quite a bit out of compliance with the new standards. The other problem that happened was going from short to long season created scheduling problems because, as all of you know, the Funko Field is on school district property and is the home to not only the Aqua Sox, but also a lot of the high school teams and community college teams that play on it. And it is right next to Memorial Stadium, which is a football and track and soccer stadium. And so now the parking lot comes into question. You can't have really the Aqua Sox playing on the same night as another event just because of all the different uses there. So they are baling wire and duct tape making it work right now, but it is a real challenge. So after many conversations with the owners, with some initial work done between us, we brought to the city council as well as the county council a resolution that was passed unanimously that basically committed both county and city to build a new outdoor multi-purpose facility that is home to the Aqua Sox here in Everett. The facility was to be inclusive and accessible with a broad range of affordable opportunities, and the facility was to be in a location that creates the strongest possible economic multiplier impact on the surrounding businesses and venues. So that was done in September of 2022. Some months ago, 9 months ago or so. The work today since then, I guess it hasn't been quite 9, but that's okay, hard to do math and talk at the same time. We've had some third parties working on some studies. Populous was hired by the Aqua Sox owner. Populous is a national firm that is locally famous for having worked on the Climate Pledge Arena redo, and but has done numerous sites across the country to look at a number of potential sites and kind of basically score them. We've done that. We are continued to work on them on various drafts. They hope to put a bow on their final report here in the next month or so. We did an economic impact study of the Aquasox as well as the Angel of the Wind Arena and a potential new stadium location somewhere besides on the school district property. So just to kind of get an idea of what that would look like. The school district property continues to be a consideration. It would probably mean tearing down the existing stadium and building a brand new one, but that is part of what we're looking at. But this economic impacts looked both at where it is now, but also at another location that is closer to downtown. We also have hired some experts in areas of structural engineering, environmental engineering, real estate, to just look at the potential sites and give their opinions on any kind of fatal flaws that we might have. Staff have been working on and will continue to work on the number one thing, a financing package that can make this all work. We've been working at every level from state to local and trying to figure out how to do that. Delivery methods, and when I say that, that sounds like, you know, I'm ordering on Prime, Amazon, but what we're talking about is how do we build this? Is this something that the city will build itself and use its own staff or project management team, or are there other ways? There's a surprising array of different ways to build a major capital project. Ownership options. Who owns it ultimately? Does the city own the whole thing and manage the whole thing, or is it owned by a third party and managed by a third party, and everything in between? Messaging and branding. We've been working on that, as well as preliminary uses of the facility. And I think what came out in this last point of the preliminary uses is a real strong support of the idea that this facility is not a stadium first. It's really a community space first that can be used by a wide array of people at a lot of times. Obviously, the baseball, even though they play 66 games, and each game lasts, you know, whatever, 3-4 hours, that's really a small percentage of the overall daylight time that this facility will experience. And so we really want to make sure that it is a great location for other paid events, concerts, activities, as well as just being a good old-fashioned park where people can walk their dog and play in a playground and do all those kind of things too. So I think that comes, that is given the setting that this whole decision is being made in, and you know, I don't have to tell the council members, but I'll just state just for the public, we're all looking at this big comprehensive plan where there's growth targets that the city is expected to meet. We've all looked at downtown as being one of those places that a lot of this growth will happen. We've all been planning for Sound Transit to have a station in the downtown core, and we've all been recognizing, I think, what we saw in the pros plan, that with the growth projections, downtown is at a significant deficit of park. And so we need to be adding to parkland as well as, you know, finding a home to the Aquasox. Councilmember Vogel, you had a question?
I do. Earlier you said that we signed the resolution to commit to build a stadium. Is that, well, that's what I heard you say. And so are you presenting this as if we are moving forward with building a stadium with the county?
I can't remember exactly what the wording
I've got it here, so I'll tell you what it is.
Okay, go ahead.
But still, regardless, are you here telling us that we're studying to build one?
I could,
I
there's an
think
environmental
yes.
process, right? So Dan hasn't gotten to that part yet, but one of the steps in this is to do an environmental assessment of sites, and there's always an alternative that does not include,
The city purchasing stuff and building it with
there's
our
always
funds?
like a no-action alternative in an environmental process like that. So there's always that kind of option.
Is anybody else hearing that we're building this?
I thought I heard you say that the EIS was done and completed. Did I mishear that?
No, you did not hear that because EIS is a pretty long process. The economic impact analysis
Okay.
was completed.
Oh, that's right. I
But
wrote
the environmental impacts
the other EI.
study has not been done yet,
Okay.
and that will be one of the biggest next steps. So I don't quite know how to answer your question or if we got it answered for you, but obviously as I would say that we are proceeding on the direction of the county and the city councils, that we have a resolution to find a new home for the Aqua Sox in Everett. So I may be
Investigate-
paraphrasing.
Investigate the feasibility of an outdoor multipurpose stadium. So I just want to be clear that we unanimously said, let's totally look at this because we totally want a new stadium. That's awesome. But please, let's find out the feasibility and not let us be the sole proprietors and have another PFD, is how I'm remembering it. And so I just want to put that out there because I want a new stadium. Feasibility is good to find out.
Great.
Well, and we'll point this out in the future, but obviously these are all questions that the council has to answer. The staff can't commit to
Right.
purchasing property, they can't commit to the financing, and I'm assuming that is the assumption going forward. Can you assume an assumption? But that's the assumption I'm making going forward. That really this is, especially if it falls on the city, many of these questions are council questions to answer.
Thank you.
Did I answer that correctly?
Well, we'll
I
see.
think I did, Okay,
I
so,
have a follow-up question. Has the economic impact study been provided to council? I don't recall
Yes.
seeing it.
yes, but I'm happy to reprovide it.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah, it's kind of a dense document. Basically, I'll tell you the long and short. Aqua Sox crank out about $10 million of economic impact in a year, 9, maybe, right around there. The PFD Arena, which is a highly functional economic engine, is closer to, if I remember right, around $90 million of economic impact a year. A new stadium in more of a downtown location with the Aqua Sox as a tenant and more like outdoor concert events and things like that you would be able to have at something like that, probably in the 30 to 35 million range, so annually. So it is, I will always say this, these economic impact statements, how many dollars are changing around and how many jobs are there, it's really different than it brings in $90 million to the general fund. That's a completely different thing, and so in that way, you're comparing how many apples do I have to spend to get a lot of oranges. So that's always a caveat, but it's an important one to recognize. But interestingly, the PFD spends out about as much economic impact every year as it cost us to build. So, to me, that's been a very successful economic driver, if that's how you're just measuring it. I think it could continue to do better, and we can continue to grow that. So anyway, that's more background than you asked.
Well, I was going to, then, a summary as I see it was a commitment last year to work with the county to study this in detail, that we are going to look at something that has direct and indirect economic impacts, that provides some park and recreational kind of facility, and that provides a venue for larger public events, and that combination will come together. We will have to evaluate that in terms of pure financial return and or costs, project that into the future, and the benefits we get from it otherwise, and say, is that worth doing that way or not, or do we want to adjust it? And I guess that decision may or may not involve direct involvement of the county council and their decision. That
Council members Arlingo answered your question much better than I did, so I think that was exactly what I understand.
Even the last county council part? Like irregardless, not even a word, regardless of what the county goes?
I mean, as far as I understand this so far, there's the commitment was to study this with the county. Right. The county's anticipated role in this, I mean, the city would have a kind of a central role because it's in the city, inevitably. The county's role, I don't know that there's no definite commitment I know of for that. I think we'd hope it'd all be a cooperative thing, that it'd be beneficial on all sides, but.
I think that's accurate. I would say, I think in the same way, there's no definitive commitment from the city's part besides to lead the process.
Yeah, okay.
The next steps that we anticipate are sometime in the next few months to have a all-council briefing. This is a big project. Obviously, all the council members need to be included in these questions because they have ramifications in every area. At that briefing, we expect to retouch on the concepts, the goals, the sites considered with some finalists, and then talk about the next big step is the SEPA process, which would have an environmental impact study as part of it. That's a 6 to 12 month process from the experts. It's not a small project. It'll require outside help for our staff, and it'll go through many, many steps. Typically, as Jennifer pointed out, you'd have a no action as well as some alternative actions to study, and so they can all be compared. And you know, I can tell you that from our initial thought, you know, there's some that have some obvious advantages and some obvious disadvantages, and it is definitely a weighing those against. And then project management. We don't have the expertise or as one of my staff colleagues said the other day, we have a lot of capability on the staff team. We just don't have a whole lot of capacity because we are a fairly lean team. And so a project of this magnitude would take some professional help. So we anticipate once that EIS is almost done that we would come back to council then after 6 or 9 months and have another briefing where some real brass tacks are with financing and site selection and how to proceed and delivery methods and ownership and all those different things. And I think that's about where I thought I would end the discussion, other than our best case scenario right now that we're considering is if we were to move forward, if all the things fall together, if the council is obviously approving everything moving forward, that this park wouldn't be open for active use until 2027. So it's at least a 4-year process. Councilmember Vogley?
How long do the Aqua Sox have at their current location?
Well, I think as far as the school district considers it, they aren't putting any deadline. The big thumb that we're experiencing is from Major League Baseball,
Right.
and the way I think of it is something like Hogwarts. In like 2025, they start getting demerits, and those demerits get like worse and worse every
Okay.
year that they're playing in a non-compliant stadium.
Okay.
So, yeah, there's not a definitive answer to that. Major League Baseball is not a really transparent negotiating partner,
Thank you.
unfortunately.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. Great. Next up, Bob and Corey with the 2022 hydroplane race briefing, please.
Yeah, Bob Leonard, Parks Facilities Director. Last year, tonight, we are going to be asking for approval for the recommendation from Park Board to hold the annual hydroplane races on Silver Lake. As part of last year's approval process, council wanted a briefing on how things went in 2022. So we figured this would be an apropos time to bring a report about how things went in 2022 to the subcommittee. With me here is Corey Rettenmeyer, Park and Golf Program Manager. Corey handles a lot of these deals, and he's going to let us know how it went.
Thank you very much. My presentation just shortened quite a bit because of the introduction, so thank you, Bob. My brief presentation, if we can get the slide.
I think she wanted me to. There we go.
Oh, perfect. My brief presentation will provide information, as Bob said, on the 22 mini hydroplane race at Silver Lake. This includes requests for participation data, participation demographics, and marketing and promotion for the event. As you can see by the slide, we had 913 attendees, and this includes racers, family members, and friends. And this was exclusive to the pit areas at Silver Lake, which are designated at certain locations at Thornton A. Sullivan. That does not include spectators outside of the areas, on the trails, shorelines, even at Emery's, for example. There were 122 race entries. 32 racers came from Canada, Oregon, California, and Idaho. So we did have, of the 122 racers, we did have a decent amount of people that came from out of town. And that does include, a lot of times, their family as well, so they're coming into town. The marketing and promotion for the event pretty much exclusively is run by the Seattle Outboard Association through their Facebook, their webpage. They do social media posts. We in the city share their event on our social media platforms, as well as through the Notify Me process as well. And they do posters and some, flyers and stuff throughout the city and throughout the area. They would like to expand the promotional piece of this to try to gather more of Snohomish County and Everett residents to enjoy the event. But this is pretty much what they do on an annual basis. So that really concludes my portion of this. But I'd like to open it up for any questions council may have.
I've got one. 122 minus 32 equals Washington State racers?
Yeah.
Okay. Or entries,
We get into,
rather?
there's some siblings, I think, that race together, so there's families that are mixed up, so yeah.
Because I can't imagine there's 122 Everett race entries.
No, those include Washington, so
All right.
people that are, they may or may not be staying, if they're from the area, so that translates probably more people that are staying over, staying the
Yeah.
nights, but we didn't have that data.
That's fine. I was just making sure we didn't have that many people that liked this in Everett.
And I think one of the goals in transitioning from one day to a 2-day event was to try to make it more of a regional thing that would bring people from other states or eastern Washington.
Yeah, that's correct. They have a hard time drawing racers if this race doesn't qualify them for a regional or a national qualification for events that take place all over the country. And this is one way that they can attract some of those extra racers.
Good point. And so is there ever going to be the possibilities are endless, I'm sure. But this has often been a one-day event and then an occasional 2-day event. But I'm going to assume right now that it's 2 days going forward. Is there going to be a 3-day event in the future that people are going to want to even get more better regional certificates? Are there such things?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Seattle Outboard Association has not requested anything more than a 2 or 3 day. These aren't necessarily sponsored events, so these are people that are, this is their own, hydroplane. So they are coming here, it's a weekend, they're staying for the event and they're leaving. So a third day would be a
I
lot
think
more.
that's a good clarifying point, is that the Seattle Outboard Association, they enter, they give us a special use permit to use the lake, like any other organization would want to use city property to do. This one's just a little bit different because it is on the lake, so it has a little bit of a different process than some of the other events. So it's hard to speak for what they would want to do, but we don't anticipate that moving forward, no.
Good to know, thank you.
If I recall correctly, there was, one of the reasonings for a two-day event was also to get a better gauge on how many folks are spending the night and how many heads and beds are generated from this event. Do you know if there's any data available for that?
The only data that I was able to get from the Seattle Outboard Association was how many out-of-state racers there were, and that does not include the ones that are maybe from Eastern Washington that are coming over here. I'm assuming that the 32 racers from out of state are all staying here, and there's probably a pretty large percentage of the people who are coming from outside of Snohomish County and beyond that are probably staying there, but I do not have that data.
I don't want to,
That's fine.
I know the work is underway on the trail around the lake, and some of that is the area where the pits are. Are we set for a proper interface? Because I know there's kind of a drop-off there where the vehicles normally go now. Are we set for compatibility that way in early June?
We should be, yeah.
Okay.
That's been on the radar of our project team, and there hasn't been any indication that there's going to be any issue. But if there are, we will work directly with Seattle Outboard to make sure that the access is where we need it to be.
And that includes the new playground that's going in as well,
Yeah.
under construction as well.
And I guess kind of related to that public access, there was, it sounds like there was also a shift, it seems an improvement in terms of a waiting area there that'll be open to the public during the races. I think there was a different segment that way that looks like, from the people I heard from who had been waiting there, they like that other area, the area you planned better.
Yeah, we're going to continue to do that. I think from what we gathered, it went well last time, and we do appreciate it. Basically expanded. It was a larger swimming area is what I think people were really happy with.
And it sounds like for the recreational part, I guess the discussions we've had recently have to do with making sure that the parts of the lake that aren't needed for the race are still open, especially Green Lantern and Hauge Homestead parks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And I also wanted to point out that Corey wins on shortest PowerPoint presentation, so Lacey, you got a new goal.
I heard there was a prize, but maybe I was wrong. Thank you.
Time is your prize. Great, any other questions? Great, so we'll see the 2023 hydroplane ordinance on tonight's council agenda. Next up, we have the downtown restroom project, the Everett Municipal Building location review. I believe would that be Bob?
Yes.
Great.
The rest of them, well, except for future agenda items, but I will participate in that as well, Army. Okay. So I really want to take the opportunity to talk about an upcoming council item that you will see. As you may recall, council recently approved some sidewalk restrooms. We are going to be looking for council to approve procurement, and procurement will be initiating this, of a additional restroom that is going to go at the EMB location. Oh, wow. I'm missing a piece here. Oh, I keep doing that. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. I'm just going to have to point it out because,
It is on the printout.
okay, on the printout, you can see that there is a green square in the upper right corner, those two parking stalls in the upper right corner of the parking lot, where it looks like there's a storage container currently. City administration has identified a need to provide public restrooms within the downtown. The proposed location of a prefabricated masonry structure was vetted by local businesses, community leaders, Downtown Everett Association, key city departments, including police, public works. This site we use a site selection criteria to evaluate, including aesthetics, visibility, safety, accessibility, inclusivity, ease of maintenance, availability of utilities, infrastructure. This site is also owned by the city, so that makes it easier for development as well. The site location currently is being used to store the Everett Farmers Market event supplies, traffic mitigation signage, and portable restroom from May through October. So this transition of the selected area is to a permanent structure that will improve the aesthetics of the storage site during the open season and provide further opportunities for more community events to be hosted at this site. So this is different, and the next slide is going to show the different restroom. So this is different than the sidewalk restroom. This one is more like what we would see in a park. This one will also include a storage area so that we can remove the storage facility that we currently have and make it nicer looking. So this restroom also will have there's no water fountains or electrical on the outside, but there is water on the inside. There is electrical on the inside, so we really wanted to make sure that this was very usable for the events, the ever-increasing amount of events that are happening in the downtown.
That seemed like a pause for a
Yeah,
question.
absolutely. I think I have a slide for that, no?
It's a two-slider.
Electricity inside, does that mean like an outlet or just lights?
Yeah, so, I'm gonna have, in the restrooms themselves, I think there's just the lights, but I think they're in the Chaseway and storage area, there is more, electricity that we'll be able to use to power for events, that are happening around there.
How many stalls per side?
These are family-style restrooms. I don't know exactly how many stalls, but the intent is to be more of a family style so that, single parents or parents with children, parents with elderly, whatever, could really go in there and use it. I think it's just one open stall that you can go in and close behind you, and you're the only one in there. So it's not like a open-style restroom.
Great. And for events downtown, I sometimes see like 10 porta potties that are out. So would we still have a need for porta potties for larger events?
Yeah, I would assume that this wouldn't change that. We selected this type and this location because it adds to what we're already doing, but the intent is to have these open even when there aren't events happening, that, everybody can use without an event, but this will supplement event needs as well.
And is the storage area in the back, will that be adequate for all of the storage needs that we currently have there?
For the needs we currently have, yes, but, things grow, we'll probably outgrow it, but we'll do what we can. We want to try to we don't want to take up too much parking, so we want to kind of keep it to the footprint that we're already utilizing.
And the in and out doors, will they be facing the ingress point, that little driveway there? Like which way will it be positioned?
So while we are looking to procure this restroom, we are currently working on site development as well. I don't know that I have the answer to exactly which way they're facing. It's probably part of the site development, which we're working with a consultant for, but that makes sense.
Great. Yeah, I'm just picturing somebody walking out as a car is pulling into the
Yes,
parking
right.
lot, and that could be a dangerous situation.
And just to make clear then, the Everett Municipal Building is the lower left of this, so the north is up, and this is the northeast corner of that parking lot then.
Yes.
Okay.
That was another, I appreciate you bringing that up, because this is one of the proximity to the EMB is a major function of this too. We already have staff that are here, that maintaining the EMB, so I think that really helps with ease of maintenance and those types of activities for this site as well. There's a lot of eyes on this site, so this makes it for another reason for why this is a good site.
And it can have a sewer connection, permanent sewer and water connection, so no.
Yes, this will
that's
absolutely
easier.
have permanent utilities.
Yeah.
Are there already streetlights and lighting in the, is there, wow, words. Is there already adequate lighting in the area for this? Or would that be part of the
That is a
site
good question.
plan?
I'm not sure. We'll have to check on that, but if there's not, we'll have to add lighting, but that's a good question. We'll check on that.
Yeah, that's a good civilizing the use and public safety kind of consideration. Yeah, make downtown more hospitable, more friendly.
I'm glad to see the changing tables on both sides.
Great.
Great. Any more questions?
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Bob. I lost my screen. Next is the Forest Park Swim Center feasibility study. Back to you, Bob.
All right. I think we're doing pretty good on time, too. This is good. Yeah. Okay. So tonight I wanted to update the committee on the status of the Forest Park Swim Center. The swim center closed on March 5th, 2020, in part response to the COVID pandemic, and it has remained closed for several reasons. One, the Forest Park Swim Center really has not performed as well as other pools in the area. The average cost recovery for a pool in the Pacific Northwest is about 68%. In our best year, which was 2019, when we had trimmed operational hours, added as many swim lessons as we could, and promoted private parties, we still only cost recovered about 56%. And it cost the city about $392,000 to operate the pool that year. We believe that the biggest contributor to the pool's poor performance is related to its outdated design. The pool is very appealing for swimming laps, but the depth makes it hard to teach swim lessons, which is a huge revenue driver. The design requires at least 3 staff members on site to safely operate the pool. And customers are really drawn to the newer pools that have lazy rivers, zero depth entries, slides, none of which are really at our pool. In December of 2019, also a brand new YMCA opened on Colby Avenue, not far from the Forest Park Swim Center. We did not have a chance to see what the effects would have been on the operational performance of the Forest Park Swim Center because of again, it was closed during the pandemic. But we were assuming that it was not going to have a beneficial impact on our bottom line. Also, Everett Parks and city administration had developed, as part of the YMCA, a partnership with the YMCA to allow residents for drop-in access. They didn't have to be a member of the Y, they could just be a resident of Everett and then utilize the pool at the YMCA. So there was a little bit less of an urgency to necessarily try to scramble to get ours open when there was a swimming access at the YMCA. We acknowledge that based on population projections cited in the 2022 PROS plan, we believe that the community may need now or eventually another pool to meet the demand of residents. But the YMCA still has capacity for their open swims and swim lesson programs. And in the 14 years leading up to the closure of the Forest Park Swim Center, our annual attendance had dropped from 77,000 annual users to 44,000. We believe that at most, we're probably only serving about 5,000 unique users when we were open. Yeah, I'm gonna forget to click slides here. Okay, I think this is one. All right, since the closure of the Forest Park Swim Center, Parks has issued 3 general There we go. Since the closure of the Forest Park Swim Center, Parks has issued 3 general requests for proposals in 2020, 21, and 22, along with a specific request for proposals focused only on the Forest Park Swim Center in February of 2022. Our hope was to find a partner who may be able to operate the swim center on the city's behalf. In all 4 of these processes, we did not receive any responses. We believe the next step is to work with an architectural firm, RMC, to complete a swim center feasibility study. RMC will provide architectural services and they will subcontract with landscape architects. We will also receive economic pro forma data and cost estimates from DCW Cost Management. Finally, we will receive aquatic recommendations from Aquatic Water Technologies. The first analysis will be determine how much it would cost and what the timeline could be to reopen the swim center in the condition it is today. Additionally, what would the operational pro forma look like for the existing swim center after a 3-year closure and with a new YMCA down the street? Next, we will look at the swim center locations and determine if the space can accommodate upgrades that may include some of the sought-out features that consumers are looking for, such as the zero-depth entry, lazy river, slides, as well as shallow areas conducive to driving swim lesson revenue. The deliverables in this area would be a construction cost estimate, a conceptual drawing, and operational pro forma estimates. Finally, RMC will explore some non-pool opportunities that would fit into the existing swim center space. While our hopes would be to find a recreational-based partner, we would look at any potential partnerships that would be mutually beneficial to the public, to the partnering business, and to the city. As mentioned earlier, the deliverables for this project will include pro forma and capital costs to reopen swim center as is, pro forma conceptual plan and capital cost to renovate the swim center, and then up to 8 pro formas for potential other uses. Are there any questions?
Comments, really. I'm super happy that this is happening. I know that there was at least one person quite interested in the pool and what's become of it or not. So, thank you for bringing it forward. And I remember bringing my kid to do swim lessons, and it was very interesting and not easy. And he's, this little and has to stand on a metal platform within the water. It was kind of scary, so he didn't end up sticking with it, but there's other reasons for that. So, thank you, and I look forward to this study being done.
It sounds like, I'm only dimly familiar with these things, but my sense is from the swim center in Linwood, the one in Snohomish, those may be a little more familiar with, that they're a big aquatic center, larger, lots more different things in addition to presumably lessons and that sort of stuff. And I haven't been to the YMCA yet. It sounds to me like it's at least a half step in that direction, a little more maybe fitness oriented. So the trend in pools has been to make sense of their high operating costs by providing a large center, kind of amortizing it over more people, bigger event or bigger center, more variety of, and that's one of the things we're struggling with is, can we provide something that is big enough, broad enough?
Yeah, definitely the variety. I don't know about the size of the pool, but definitely the variety and those amenities that people are really looking for, like the slides and the zero depth entry, lazy rivers, those types of activities. Having a deep pool that's really good for lap swimming appeals to certain demographics, but not to everybody.
And it sounds like offering a lot of those things does require a fair amount of space, at least the ones I've seen. The swim centers, the aquatic centers have been pretty physically big. And I don't remember Forest Park being that
Absolutely,
size.
yeah, they would definitely take more space just because of the areas, when people running into each other type of activities, and a lot of them, the pool needs to be designed differently to have some of those activities happening.
One last question, is the current building, the current structure fairly structurally sound? Are we, working from a real deficit that way, or is it okay?
Yeah, absolutely. We really feel like this is an important building. So no matter what happens with the recreational component, we feel like this is a great location. It should be used by the city for some purpose, not just sitting there. So we definitely need to really work to figure what that purpose is. If it could be a pool, swim center, great. We need to hear that and see what the costs are going to be in the current condition, or trying to update it to increase our cost recovery, at least up to what we would expect, even if it's still losing money, but at least it's higher. the possibility could exist that, yes, we need a pool, but maybe in a different location, one that's not so close to the Y. And this should still be used for something, and we need to figure what that is.
Okay. Thank
Great, thanks, Bob. Yeah, I know that pool's been, it's a very special place for many longtime Everett residents. I know the pool was swim lessons was the last thing I did with my kiddos before the pandemic hit, the last normal thing I did, so special place for me too. As a suggestion, just an idea balloon, since I have my microphone on, I'd be curious if the feasibility study might also include potentially moving the preschool at Forest Park to that center at some point, because I also did preschool at Forest Park, and the demand for childcare is really high, the space is small, so having a larger space to grow that program, which is beneficial to many families in Everett, I think would be really amazing.
Yeah, appreciate the idea.
Great, thanks. Any more questions?
Okay, yes, just.
Great.
It's, since you're here and we're parks and quality of life, I was just at Forest Park and I noticed, I don't know why I hadn't noticed it before, the immense amount of horseshoes, stalls, I don't know what they're called, we have. It was like, what? Do that many people use horseshoes still? I know there's a big horseshoe, like, group, I know, and they are used, but there was like a lot. And also, it looked like the, roofing area was not doing too well,
Yep.
so.
So I totally agree. I don't think we have as much of a need for so much horseshoes. We are working with our current planning staff to come up with some ideas and some community partners as well to potentially keep some horseshoes, but maybe also incorporate some mixed use that maybe either they can either double as cornhole or have some other cornhole activities. I know we've also been talking with some local pickleball groups about maybe expanding some courts over there and adding some pickleball. We've been looking at adding some more shelters around there. So there is some preliminary design work that we are working on coming up in the future, hopefully. I'm optimistic that some of those ideas could come to fruition. So totally agree with you. That is one of the areas of Forest Park that could definitely use a facelift.
+1 for pickleball and add bocce ball to that list too. Mhm. Good one.
And we're still getting rope swings, not rope swings, the rope course. That's still happening, right? This is totally not on the agenda and I am not a chair.
That's all right, we're
so-
ahead of time.
Question remains.
Yeah, they are still our future partner.
Okay.
However, because of the pandemic and things that have happened since then, we don't have a current timeline when we're going to start that. Need to really work with our partner. Progress we've made is still there. We could pick that up, but we do need to make sure that they feel comfortable from their perspective that it's going to be something that they can achieve as well. So we're still working with them to, I'm still optimistic that at one point that will still happen.
Cool. I forgot that it was pre-pandemic that we started talking about it.
Great, thanks, Bob. That leads us to our next discussion item, which is future agenda items. I did want to take a moment to revisit the work that was done during our council retreat this year, and where we identified a number of different topics that we would like to see. So I was just going to review those real quick, just for a refresher. Top of the list was economic development to work with downtown property owners and fill empty storefronts. Next was libraries open every day and be fully staffed and cleaned, which is also probably work that our budget committee would be working on. On the list included utilizing homeless individuals to work to access shelter services. Stadium, during the feasibility stage, examine economic impact and discuss funding plan, which we covered today. Good job, team. And also included departments that are included and issue areas included in this committee include parks, climate, arts, economic development, libraries, civic engagement, education, and workforce development. So I personally would love to start with the very top of this list about having discussions and really work on ways that we can help fill the vacant storefronts in downtown Everett. I know the Downtown Everett Association has a survey out right now about what folks would like to see in downtown Everett, what types of businesses, what types of activities to fill those storefronts. Hope everybody else also votes for an ice cream shop. And so I think that there's things that the city can do as well, including examining what types of businesses are allowed on certain streets downtown. I know that some streets don't allow for antique type stores or resale type stores. Some streets, all streets don't allow for street level businesses that provide medical services. And so I'm not sure if that's something that would go through our committee, or if our committee can come up with a formal request for our planning commission to take a look at those uses and make suggestions on ways that we can lift restrictions downtown, which would open up the doors literally for more businesses to fill empty storefronts. And also to have a discussion about carrots and sticks. What incentives can we give and help people move downtown? And what are some ways that we can address the property owners that are purposefully holding onto vacant storefronts for too long to make sure that they're moving to fill those spaces for the betterment of our community? So that's my personal preference, and I would turn it to my co-chair for comments or suggestions.
I think that's a fine summary. I don't have additional input there. I think that, yeah, nothing more to add.
Great. Councilor Vogel.
And I have two things. I happen to have last week's comments from Alan Miller when he requested registration requirements, and since you mentioned owners that are holding on to empty spaces for too long, we can figure out what too long is. So that would just be an idea to go forward with that. And then I also remember talking, this was pre-pandemic, with Dan Ernest about, and I'm not sure if it ever came to council, but block by block, I don't even know what the words are or what words I should use. So, just finding out block by block who's got what and how their buildings are being utilized, and if they are falling to pieces, then doing something about that. And I think the term eminent domain, which I don't like that word, but that was in there. So maybe that's a revisit.
Well, I don't know if it's my turn to speak, but I'll respond. There were several things in that. Thankfully, some of the things we've already started working on, and hopefully you'll see some results. One is just our ongoing support of the Downtown Everett Association has led to a much healthier, robust organization, and they have created what we did not have before the pandemic, and that's basically a database of every building and every tenant in those buildings and all the landlords. So that's a lot better, and they have been great partners about focusing searches for specific building types, and as we field those, get a entrepreneur interested in starting a particular business. It is an interesting thing, not every vacant space fits every business, so it has to be a really great fit. One of the other things that you mentioned was the filling vacant storefronts, and we are planning at this point to bring forth a proposal, and that was one of the things on my list, to just make sure that you all thought this was a good idea, using some ARPA funds to create a grant program that can target some funds to help fill. It wouldn't be like dozens, but it would probably be a handful of vacant spaces with some significant grants that are allowable use of ARPA funds, which we weren't convinced that was an allowable use, so we took some time with our legal counsel and found out that there are some swim lanes. If we can go back to the swimming metaphor, there are some swim lanes that we can swim in to help use ARPA funds to really provide some significant incentives, and it definitely falls in the carrot category. As far as the sticks and the zoning, those are probably things that we would love to, talk about. I don't have a presentation already underway for that, but that could be
What?
something.
You can't read our minds when we're discussing future agenda items? I didn't even mean to put you on the spot.
That's a good example too of where we might take a look at sort of what the parameters are of that, because maybe it fits, with the comprehensive plan update or the work that the Built Environment Committee is doing.
It crosses
So-
those, I think, pretty
Yeah.
clearly. And for my own part, there's a bureaucratic load in terms of some detailed looks and enforcement, and if we can do these things with carrots, I would rather do more carrots than sticks, and I think the general thrust that at least I lean to with the ARPA funds, and I'm not alone in this, is investments that are self-sustaining. Use them more as a catalyst than as an operating fund, and I'm happy to see that. I guess I'll try to pay attention. Certainly would like to hear if there are any other communities that have had that catalyst effect that we can support, because I think that's the way to invest in the city for the future, and make sure those storefronts stay occupied, because I think that's the critical thing.
I'll share that I do have a concern about the ARPA suggestion, mostly because my understanding is that there's a limited number of people that own a lot of the properties in downtown Everett, and a lot of these properties have become derelict over time. So the city would then be investing to bring these properties back, which honestly, and I'm okay that this is on public record, it feels like rewarding bad behavior. And I would rather support small businesses and support small business owners and their families and their dream, instead of putting city dollars into structures that have been left to deteriorate over time.
May I respond to that? I think there's definitely an 80-20 rule, and it might be even 90-10. 90% of the real annoying things that you're seeing might be caused by 10% of the landlords that are bad players. There actually are a lot of different landlords, many of whom are pretty responsible, but there's some spaces, and the great example, I think, is the one on the corner here under the Marriott building that has been a long-term, really Class A quality space that has had issues, partly because of the zoning things, what is and is not allowable, and also just because of the big jump necessary to get that space up to, a restaurant grade. It's probably, $500,000 of tenant improvement there, and to have you're probably not talking a small, startup. Yeah, I'm going to use my life savings to go into to make a $500,000 jump just to get the commercial kitchen in, and then to build all that out. It might be a couple $1 million investment just to open a restaurant. That probably is a pretty major business that you're attracting to that, either with some kind of track record or whatever. And that's just been it's been the dance that we've had. So I think that any proposal that comes to you will have a significant application and vetting period to make sure that that isn't happening. I think we all share your desire to use ARPA funds as a real investment for our downtown that stays in the downtown and doesn't just, it's not a reward for bad behavior, to use in your words. I think that was a very well stated, and I think, crafting the application process to make sure that that is what happens would be a great element of that effort.
Well, and vacant storefronts aren't just an issue downtown, and business I visited a while back was reactivating a place that had been a stall, a segment that had been vacant for a couple of years. So in some of those cases, that was probably a fairly modest investment. In this business, they were doing their own labor on this. So that's part of what I mean by a catalyst. If we get more storefronts, even if they're not downtown, they are helpful to to the city. So that's kind of one of my prime focuses that way, I think, because those are modest amounts and they generate businesses that then serve customers, have employees, and bring in revenue.
Great. This sounds like an excellent discussion to continue at our next Parks and Quality of Life Committee meeting.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's on Dan's mind, but I think he may not be in town for the May meeting.
Okay.
So there might be an opportunity to talk about like ramping up to summer quality of life, cool things that are happening, maybe with the library, maybe with the rest of your team. But we can work on it after tonight, but just as a note.
Yeah,
Is that right?
that was exactly, I mean, it actually was on my mind to just say that I have initially talked to Tyler Chisholm, who's our placemaking manager, to keep the date open next month. I'll be on vacation, but to keep that date open so he can provide an update on all the events coming up, both those that the city runs, but also those that we help the event producers manage. And frankly, there's a lot of parks involvement in a lot of those, and so I think it's a totally appropriate thing for you to be aware of, and it's really on the threshold of our busiest event season. The ARPA discussion we're having, I think our thought was that could be done with our next quarterly update from for the full council. So if I wasn't clear on that before, but that was in my mind where that would happen. Certainly happy to deal with some of these other questions or do that at the June meeting if you find that a better time.
Great. I think for the summer activities, the library has a number of really great activities as well, so I think it'd be great to request if Abby could join us for that meeting and then also share some more in line with our one of our priorities to have her share a little bit more about what it would take to get the library to be able to restore its hours and whatnot.
Sounds good.
Great. All right. Anything else? Thanks, everybody. 6:01. We are adjourned.